the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
I feel richer already just being on this podcast. It's only been a
Oh,
few minutes of us having conversation and now just bringing this to life. I feel richer. Thank you.
oh, thank you. I'm already obsessed with you. I was before we got on the call, but everyone, you are in for a really special treat today. We are speaking with a death tech founder. Estrella created the Last Farewell app, which is her extension of her journey to make sure that no words are left unspoken when your loved one passes on. And I'm sure you're all aware this speaks deeply to me, but it also speaks really deeply to Estrella. And over this episode, we're just going to talk all things life, death, travel, tech. And I, for one, am just so excited to hear your story and to share it with everyone. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody listening. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this conversation.
So I love so much that you already are an individual that kind of overcame something big unexpectedly after your father's passing, which was you kind of finding a really innate freedom, it seems, that just unlocked you to the rest of the world. You traveled to handle and deal with the passing of your father, going to his funeral. And in that moment, you kind of were given the gift of discovering that you not only had the travel bug, but that you could do this and that this was something that you were capable of, which it seems has really opened you wide up. How many countries have you visited so far? Total and then
53,
solo. And then solo?
40.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. First of all,
So,
wait, that the way you summarized that was, I've never heard my story like that. You made it seem like I
oh,
was a part of an Audible book. That was amazing. Wow. I was like,
your
oh, I'm
story
listening to
is
this other person's
amazing.
story. Thank
Your
you.
story is amazing and it's so beautiful. And I think someone that's, dealt with grief, dealing with grief forever, it's one of those things to where you hope and pray that the person being affected by it and going through it uses it as a way of rebirth rather than a shadow period that only just keeps them in a place of death. To each their own during that journey, but it's as someone that's going through it and has seen many people go through it, there's so many different outcomes. And I find it really beautiful and really inspiring that this was the direction that your grief took you. And
Yeah.
I love to highlight what can happen throughout that process because someone that's never even had a touch of grief hit them can feel so terrified by it. And I think it is the most difficult thing, one of the most difficult things you can go through in life, but there's, like most things, always a silver lining available.
Of course. I always like to say that my dad's death was definitely the saddest gift, but also the best gift because it really woke me up to how short this life is. And it was all grace for all sort of reason. One, he was deported. So from Texas to Nicaragua after living in the U.S. for 23 years, he ended up back in Nicaragua for the last year of his life. So that was hard, but I was also a senior in high school and I was really academically focused. I was very, straight edge. I was very like, I'm going to get these good grades. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a great job. I'm going to help my family. So even when he would call me, I would keep those calls really short and be like, oh, I gotta go or gotta do this. And my dad had a tough year of his last life too, so there was other things to it. But the moment I learned he passed away, it's like all those things did not matter. The grades didn't matter. The school didn't matter. Nothing mattered. All I could think on was, wow, that last phone call I had was so bratty. I was so short. It was so insincere. And the day before, when he called me 3 times, I didn't answer because I was mad at him. It was my birthday, and he took too long to call me. So I think just all of that came, and I was 18, and it really just hit. And then going to Nicaragua for his funeral was a whole different culture shock. I'd never been. My family's from there. I'd never been. I met 80, probably 80 family members from my mom's side there for the first time ever. I went to my dad's funeral. None of my siblings could go because of money. And it was just one of the hardest things ever. But when I came back on the plane, I wrote myself a letter that I still have. And I was just like, Estrella, you got to live life differently. Like you can't do this anymore. And so, yeah, I still have it. It's crazy that November 2013 letter. So I knew in that moment that I needed to make a change, but I was also very limited by finances. My mom was a housekeeper. My dad was, unemployed, self mechanic. So I didn't have a lot of opportunities to ask around for finances. Like, yeah, you know what, whatever. I'm just gonna go live my dreams. But I knew university was going to be a way out, so I got a full ride to the University of Florida, and from there I got scholarships and credit cards and student loans to go study abroad. And that just changed everything because it showed me that I could do this without necessarily having money, just borrowing money from my future self. I always told myself, Estrella, when you're 30, you're going to be rich. You're going to wish you could send yourself back $10,000 to go do this stuff. It was a bit reckless. It was a little chaotic. I obviously don't recommend it for everyone. Be mindful of your situation. But I would say I have high risk. Is it high risk tolerance? Is that, yeah, I was ready to risk it. I was like, okay, we're going to die. I'm going to go risk this. So I know just having that opportunity to study abroad, I changed my major to tourism and hospitality. And in those few years of university alone, I was able to travel to 40 countries. And that's what led me to get job opportunities with my current co-founder, actually, at his company Go Abroad. So it was just all beautiful to see the way life paved out for me when I decided that I just really wanted to focus on maximizing my life. And yeah, having that experience around the world, being first gen Latina, coming from the financial background that I did, it just blows my mind because a lot of people weren't aware that, you could do this. And I felt like I got really lucky. Like I got this information and I just ran with it. And I feel like, yeah, those travels really just taught me that honestly, I could do anything. And that's kind of what leads to my founder journey now, which is like, well, I did that. I could do this. It's a whole different thing. But like, if I could do that and travel alone at, at 19, 20, 21,
Yeah.
I could do anything.
I'm so before we jumped on, guys, we had a little convo. This founder is 28 years old, okay? We have a 10-year age difference. And I think two things are really big for me to point out for you as like an elder, well, we'll say an elder sister I'm coming at you from.
I like that.
Uh, so for you to not only have the emotional responsibility of dealing with a sudden passing of a father in another country at the age of 18 when you're still in school, your senior year, a very self-focused time in your life, and rightfully so, because as we age and grow, these are the times in which it is expected of us to have this focus. So I want you to know that the grace and the poise that you gave yourself through what is the hardest time in life for grown adults dealing with their parents passing at 70, 80 years old, you took on like a superstar as a child. And that hardship that you paid, those tears, that fear, everything, you had no idea what you were going through and what was next, literally paved the way for you to be where you are right now at 28. You are so ahead of the curve, and the saddest gift is such a beautiful way to put it. That's how I feel about my father's passing and what it did for me and my growth. But it is important for me to say to you that you were above and beyond as a child in a time where no one knows what to do. No one can make heads or tails of what's happening. And for you to not only make it through that time, be able to be present for your family, go and be present and meet all these other family members, you listen to your heart. And then you put yourself first because you realize what truly matters. Yes, grades are important. You need them to get into college. But the basis and the focus of your drive in that moment, it sounds like switched. And in the switching, it freed you from the conventions of a stereotypical life that you likely would have continued on your path with had this not happened to you. So I want you to just be proud of yourself and be so happy that you were that brave 18-year-old to get through that, because I was 33 when my dad passed away, and I had 20 years to prepare, and it was awful, difficult, terrible. Wouldn't wish it on anybody. So it's mind-blowing to me that at that age and with such grace and poise, you've led to where you are now. It's beautiful.
That's so incredible. I feel like you're a therapist on the side. That was so beautifully spoken. You just healed something inside of me. That was awesome. Thank you. I really needed to hear that. I definitely have been really hard on myself within this founder journey.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. I never thought about it that way at 18. Yeah.
Yeah, you're a child. And then aside from that, I think the other thing that really stands out for me, I'm a crier, sorry, Yeah.
I cry. Here,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
I
you.
got a less
I'll
verbose
be
tissue
crying all
box.
episode. I love so much that, you know, you also stating that you were 18 to me, don't ever be hard on yourself or have regret for how you treated your father in those years, because those years were your years. And in the parameter of time, no one would ever blame you, including your father, for being worried about like your livelihood at the moment was getting through school and getting into college. But I think it's so the universe is such a beautiful co-creator of our life, and I love so much that you were given three voicemails. And in those
Yes.
moments where you thought you were being a brat, you were just, your future self was giving you that gift of these voicemails that not only you have to listen to when he sings you happy birthday every year, which is so cute. I love that so much, but it birthed the idea for you to leave conventionality and to move forward with your heart guiding you on your path of what you're going to do with your life, with your purpose, with your work. Can you tell us a little bit about like what specifically that time was like when you had kind of had the switch in the mindset to where you're like, nope, not doing this. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to travel. I'm going to work on what I believe in and make my dreams happen. Like, what was that time like for you? And can you remember when that shift happened for you mentally?
Yeah, it seems like a blur, I'll be honest. After the funeral, I came back and I know I went back to school. I think now that it was that semester senior year, I'd already done all the college applications. I decided to just have fun. I just decided to, like, you know what, let me have fun. And I don't condone underage drinking, but this plays a part into the story. I think the fun for me is like, well, like I've never drank at high school parties. I'd never thought it, I thought it was dumb. I thought it tasted terrible. So I know that after that, it was like the fun was associated with like, yeah, trying to like drink a bit and tequila shots with friends. And now I look back at it, I was like, oh wow, well, like I'm really glad I went majority of high school not experimenting there. But it was like I want to say it was a more reckless fun. It was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make friends. I'm gonna go parties, and that alcohol gave me just a confidence boost. So those next few years, it was like, yeah, I had this like delusional confidence. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go backpack. I'll take a little GoPro. I'll take a lot of photos. And then when I went in the solo travels, I started, I found alcohol to be the easiest way to make new friends, especially at bars. You could just be like, yeah, happy hours. And I love strangers, and I love when people tell me their stories. I love when they just open up. And I feel like alcohol is like that magical elixir where people just open up. So I definitely thought I associated alcohol with fun. And I say that now because I know like my dad had his own troubles. So with certain, things. And so I always try to be mindful because I think in my family, I think addiction can be, you know, there's a fine line between it. But he never drank alcohol. So because he never drank alcohol, I was like, oh, it's okay. And so I'm getting off topic. Sorry, I'm rambling. I
No,
got
no, you're
nervous.
good. Everything is on topic here on this show, so you talk about
Okay,
whatever you want.
sounds great. Okay, well, you asked me when did I realize that moment. It was definitely during high school. It was definitely when I was like letting go a bit.
Mhm.
And then it got stronger in university when I signed. Can you hear me?
You're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, it got stronger in university when I signed up for that study abroad program, and then it got even stronger when I was a free backpacker in Europe, and then go meeting all these strangers and hopping from country to country and jumping on trains, yeah, taking shots at happy hours. And that was like, for me, that was like, wow, this is the most fun thing to do. I felt so free. And then it kind of like during the pandemic, I've realized, okay, this has been fun. This life of, yeah, let me just live my life. But I realized that I wasn't living the way I should have been living. I wasn't paying attention to my health. I was using alcohol just more as a source of confidence, and not really understanding who I was. So now I'm 3 years sober, and I've completely relearned how to live life more meaningfully without necessarily using things that are going to bring me down the next day or just give me a lot of anxiety or make me doubt, my abilities. So when my dad first died, those first few years, it was like, yeah, I'm going to have fun. And I did it in a reckless way. And I wish in that voicemail that he left me, I wish he could have said something like, stay healthy, or even straight up as like, don't no drugs or drinks. Like, I think that, like, I feel like having that guidance from him after would have inspired me, like, oh well, this was my dad's last wish, like, let me try to honor it. So with Last Farewells, we want people to leave intentional messages. Like I was really lucky that I got my dad's last voicemails, and he didn't know he was going to pass away. So the fact that he did that 3 days before he died, it's crazy to me that he left those voicemails. And but I always still wonder, like, what would he have said differently if he knew he was going to die? And now with Last Farewells, I really want people to create these types of messages that can help guide you on a path. And you don't have to listen to it, right? You don't have to listen to your mom or your dad or your aunt, but it's always nice to have someone wanting the best for you and wanting to say, keep going for your dreams, keep pushing hard, keep dreaming big, you know, don't be too hard on yourself. Like exactly what you told me right now. Like I wish I could have, heard those words too. So I think, yeah, I've lived life more colorfully, and meaningfully, but it's definitely shifted in terms of how I live it. Like it's not the same as it was when I was 21 traveling around the world. It's definitely super different now because now I have different priorities and bigger dreams that involve helping more people, not just myself.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I think the thing I can say, it resonates with me a lot that you use alcohol in that manner. I had a definite drinking problem for probably 19, like we'll say 6 months into college. I was like, oh, okay, there are parties around
The
here.
freedom, right?
The freedom, and also I came from a really small town, and I could work at the bars at 18, but they looked
Wow.
nothing like city bars. So it was,
Yeah.
I went to school in Philadelphia, so there were nightclubs, like it was just a different scene. Mine was more about escapism rather than trying to connect with people. It was always just trying to like numb the feelings I had. But I think it resonates with me that you wish that your dad would have said to you, like, be healthy, take care of yourself. But as someone that had to get through that kind of like journey of stepping away from alcohol and just deciding, like, this is definitely not helping me, and I can have fun without this. Like, I don't need this. It feels like hearing you say that it was absolutely just a discipline mission for you you had to go through. And that was just the continual rerouting of putting yourself first. It seems like you have these big moments in your life where you veer away from just the knowing of who you are. And now it seems very fully that you know who you are. You know what you want. You know what your purpose is. You know what meaningful you're looking for in your life. And I think that comes from those moments where you do step away from those unhealthy things. And it would have certainly happened if your father wished it and you abided by his last wish, but I think there's great power in it being a self decision. And I feel like in the message that he left you, and I'm going to paraphrase because I've only heard you paraphrase it, I sobbed when I was listening to you on the Tech 23. Guys, super cool podcast. I'll put them in the show notes and then I'll link that. Super cool podcast. I'm being obsessed. Like, I listened to your interview and then I just fell down the rabbit hole. I loved it. But
Oh my gosh.
you spoke about your father telling you that there is a change coming around the corner. And I don't know the context of what he said that for and why, and that's personal and for you. But he literally foretold the next year of your life.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
literally foretold it. And that to
Honestly,
me
that was
was like
shocking to me too.
beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah. I can't. So the what he says is at the end, he says things are going to change soon. You'll see. By and but to give you context on who my dad was, he was a huge dreamer. He had a lot of dreams. And he had a lot of courage. He was 23 when he moved from the U.S. and he helped a bunch of people come to the U.S. So it wasn't an easy job going back and forth and bringing hundreds of people over. So that courage, I was like, wow, okay. Anytime I'm scared of entrepreneurship, I think about him doing that, and I'm like, okay, come on, Estrella, get it. But overall, like he always had dreams. He always growing up. He's like always told me he's gonna be rich. He's like, you're just waiting until I'm a millionaire. Like he always had a huge aspirational dream. So I definitely get that from him. And so to me, like, I guess when I heard that, it didn't seem like if he would have told me that, like, yeah, things are going to change. I was like, if anything, I'll roll my eyes like, oh, you always tell me things are going to change. Right. So I was almost like, like, it's like you don't believe it as much. But the last time he said it, it was like, yeah, things are going to change soon. You'll see. That one definitely was more chilling because he ends the voicemail like that. And yeah, and I always say that things really, really did change. And it's sometimes like I'll tell the story of the voicemail and I've said it so many times, but then sometimes I listen to it and I'm really deep in it and I'm like, wow, I can't believe he left me that. And I cry all the time. I cry so much because now sometimes the birthday voicemail just plays randomly on my laptop and I'm like, oh, I have hundreds of songs on my library, by the way. So it's always consistent. Like this voicemail randomly plays if I press a key, but it's a gift because I was like, oh, let me like breathe in, like let me settle. And yeah, sometimes it is hard to be on this emotional journey with death tech because I'm constantly reminded of, the death of my father and the death of my grandpa, and how literally everybody I know that's probably older, most more than likely, is going to pass away before me. So my loved ones are going to pass away. So it's kind of sad because like it's that anticipatory grief. I think that's how you say it. But I also want to make sure that I'm not just fear. I'm not living in fear. I want to make sure I'm not just like constantly scared of like them being gone. So it's a really interesting balance trying to like move forward with death tech, and because I know it's something that can definitely help a lot of people, especially in their grieving journey, have these types of messages and life stories just from their loved ones. But I also want people to not get too hung up on the messages where it's stopping them from actually proactively living their life or choosing to move forward. If anything, I would hope these messages are just a boost to like push them onto the path that they're meant to be on, that they wake up and think like, is this job for me? Am I on the right path? Are these habits that I'm doing, are they right for me? Are these friends right for me? I just want people to question and take a look at where their life is. And I still have my days, of course I question it. I'm not like, I gotta live my life, yeah, right, I gotta preach what I practice, but it is hard. But I think definitely the messages always keep me in perspective of like, okay, he's gone, my mom's here, I have to cherish her, my family's here, I have to do what's best for them, and then I'm here, number one, most important, take care of me before I can think of taking care of other people.
Yeah. There's definitely a unexpected amount of presence that kind of is like interwoven with anxiety in grief, to where you're like, everyone's gonna die. And then you're like, I need to spend every waking moment with all the people I care about, or I need to look at this flower just a little bit longer. It's gonna wilt. And like, it does place a pressure that I think eventually just becomes a switch in mindset, because you can't allow it to trigger you constantly emotionally. And although grief is not a linear process, there will be days where it just tears you apart and you can't function because of that thought. But then there are other days where that thought is what makes you smile, and you feel that connection of just like the source and everything. Just, that in that moment, you're like, this is perfect. This is right. This is what's supposed to be. I'm
Yes.
on the right track. Take this deep breath here. You're doing great. Let's keep going. Like, it's very reassuring when you do get to that place. And guys, if you're in a place of difficult grief or recent grief and you feel just like you're swirling in the bucket, try to just find ways to give yourself the gift of just a moment to yourself. Go to a dark, quiet space. I used to pick the bathroom. I'd shut the lights off and just stand there for a minute. It's typically quiet in there. You might hear like a little toilet drip or something, but try to segregate yourself from other energy, other people. Even if it's great energy, you may not want it or need it. You will get through this.
For
There's
sure.
hope on the other end of the journey. But
Oh
I
my
love
gosh.
so much that in those difficult moments, I would have, we had time. We had 20 years with my dad. I recorded a podcast with him a few years before he passed when we thought it was close, and then he extended his life further. And
Wow.
it was just, for me, I had regret because I was working a corporate job, and my last 6 months, I was traveling for a pharma company for conferences constantly. They wouldn't let me use my PTO. I only saw him on the weekends.
Wow.
It was what led on my journey of deciding, like, F what's supposed to be. Money is fake. Love is real. I don't
Yes.
care how my life goes, but I'm going to live every waking moment with like whole focused purpose of love and intention and connection with my husband, with my family, with my dog, with my cat. Like, this is what matters to me. But I would have loved very much so to have an app that I could go to in the moments that really suck, to just feel that comfort and not have to dig through a cell phone and find the like one. I have like different folders, like dad talking, dad laughing.
Yeah.
Like, you can get really granular in the deeps of the pain, but your app to me, all right guys, let's break down what the app is first. You created an app where people can prepare, in essence, like estate planning, but for the heart, for the soul, of giving their loved ones their thoughts, feelings, last messages. Maybe they, want to give them peace and comfort for after it first happens. Maybe there's some instructions that are not, they're will adjacent, but it's more like be kind to your brothers, get along, like you've had this trouble your whole life and it's just that you're the same and you need to be friends. Like there's always going to be something that you think in these moments when you do have time before someone passes that these big, gigantic, meaningful conversations are going to happen. No, they will not. Your person is worried about passing, or they're in great pain, or feeling very sick. You are half a human. Your brain doesn't work. Your heart is certainly in no condition to make words come out of your mouth and speak things, to say to someone, to give to someone. And in the reverse, I could see it being very difficult for someone that's not well to say these last words. Like, I remember the gravity of my dad's last words to me.
Wow.
And I could see the pain in him to say it because he knew it was his last thoughts, his dreams slash regrets because there was no more time to complete them. And I have him up here, but I love what you're doing so much
Thank you.
because it's so important for people to have. And God willing, most people won't ever need this app until their person's 95 years old and they pass beautifully in their sleep, but that's not reality, guys. And the beauty of almost treating this like insurance for your heart, it's life insurance for your heart. You get to put it down, put it out, record a message for your daughter for her wedding day, future messages for your grandchildren you may never meet, like retirement plans for your brother. Congratulations, so sorry I couldn't make it. Like, these celebrations in life are the moments where you miss that person a lot. And to be able to go to your app and click however it works out, it isn't out yet, but it will be soon. We'll talk about that later. But it's so refreshing for someone to create something that means something to our actual life. And it's for the moments that people don't know until they know them. And that's kind of the intricacies of being a human, right? Like, we have to almost rely on others sharing their story for us to understand what could be coming up the pike for us. But what does the gravity of this coming to life feel like for you, because you know very personally how important these messages are?
Yes. First of all, wow. That was my heart. Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for sharing about your father. And thank you for really keeping me going on this founder journey. I mean, you've been a founder, so you know, you know the highs and lows. But this is what I wanted for. I wanted to help people, especially people who understand that they didn't get it with someone who's already passed, but there's still so many people that they love in their life, that they could prepare for with. Yeah, and you said it so beautifully. Last farewells, we just really want to help people create and schedule their last messages, and we'll deliver it to their loved ones after they pass away. So it's a simple concept. It's not breakthrough text. It's tech. It's not the AI, whatever, all that stuff. Well, we'll implement AI later on certain aspects, but you know what I'm saying. But it's not the common norm, because right now people mostly just go figure out their legal stuff, their financial practices, but all that said and gone, when you pass away, the person who's grieving is really gonna just want you and your comfort and your words, and they're going to want to hear from you one more time. And what you said earlier, it's a lot of time people, when someone passes away, the first instinct is to go through your phone and go through the last messages. What was the last text? Oh no, what was the last thing I said? And most of the time it's probably not going to be this huge, oh my God, I love you, you're the best person in the world. It's not going to be most of the time. If it is, it's very lucky. But most of the time it just be maybe just a general ordinary text, and that's okay. And with Us Worlds, we wanted to create this to help people get a peace of mind, knowing that in case something happens or when it happens, that they said everything they had to say and they left no words left unspoken. They said their love, they said their gratitude, they said their maybe apologies, but they put it out there, and they know that, like, hey, this is gonna get to the person that I'm hoping it gets to. So being the person on the opposite end. So the way it's happened is, like, you got to create the messages, and then there's a receiver who's going to receive the messages. So I'm in an interesting spot because I'm a receiver. I already have beautiful messages from my dad that I was not expecting that to have most definitely helped me these past 10 years. So I know that this will work with people who are grieving because I have it. So knowing that, it's almost like, okay, well, how do I build everything in between to get people to create the messages so that it can help the grievers? And that's where that definitely the journey has been really interesting as a founder because although I have a dream so big and I'm super passionate about it, I wasn't armed with the knowledge. Nobody in my family had a business like this. And like I had no knowledge. All of my network I've had to build from the ground up because I just there's no one that could just open the doors for me or introduce me. So it's definitely been the first years of my life, because I was so people oriented, I naturally made relationships. So that when I started my founder journey, I already had just friends and community and family supporting me. And now it was like the business journey of, okay, well, yeah, like pouring my heart and soul and dreams out to potential investors. And then on the other end saying like, well, how is this going to make money? And I know it's gonna, I get it. It's capitalism, we got to make money. But my intention, though, at the end of the day, is to make sure that our platform's accessible, because this is not, end of life planning is not accessible. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and a lot of people do not have knowledge about it. So with what I like to say is emotional end of life planning, it is something that just your words can do so much for people, and you genuinely don't know. There's so many people that pass away around the world that leave nothing behind because they would never go to a lawyer for like a little some clothes that they had or the little jewelry they had. They would never go to someone and be like, give this to my loved ones or put this in. Like, they would never do that. So I just want Last Farewells to be a place where we can help people create these habits of almost like once a year check-ins. Like people do taxes, like, all right, checking in, looking back, all right, did these milestones pass? Okay, let me plan for future milestones. Oh, I got a new granddaughter. Okay, I got to create these graduation and wedding videos for her in the future just in case. I want this to be something that's just bigger than a one-time will. Like on wills, you see the videos and it's just like you blurt out everybody you love in the span of 5 minutes and say, all right, thank you, everybody, bye. But I want this to be more so like there's neighbors we want to thank, there's people at church, there's people we've met, teachers and friends that we do not ever extend our love to in those final days, because our immediate like thing is family. But I know like with preparation, people can share so much more love and gratitude to so many more people if there was just a platform that made it easy from like the beginning to end. Like, create, what type of message do you want? A letter, a video, an audio message? Or when do you want it delivered? Upon my death, on a certain milestone, or on a specific day, like say May 3rd, or November 8th, November 11th, whatever day. So yeah, those are the three options right now, and we're definitely it's really interesting for me to balance the emotional side of it and then know when I have to, like, all right, boss up, Estrella, like, people gotta see you as you gotta be savvy, like, you gotta know how this can actually have a future and how we can get the funds to make sure that this is not scalable just in English but in 100 plus languages and dialects, because that's where the impact's going to hit the most, masses, right? And this is not a concierge service. This is, I want it to impact the masses because everybody's life has value and everybody can leave one tidbit of advice and their wisdom and their their life story behind. So that's, yeah, I forgot your question, but that's Last Farewells.
No, it's beautiful. And you're going to bring bereavement to billions of people. It's just, it doesn't get paid attention to, and certainly not in the tech sector. And I think, oh, quickly, I want to highlight the fact that I find it really cool. There's a memorial page aspect.
Oh, yeah.
Timeline, a life timeline that I love so much,
Yes.
because although they were your person and you know all the things about them, you're getting older. Your brain gets fuzzy, and a lot of our memories on what we recall them to be is exactly as you think they are. So doing something like this when things are more fresh is awesome.
Oh my
I
gosh.
just think that's such a cool like
Wait,
perk to it that I
let me
love.
talk about the memorial page. Yeah, we talk about the last messages. I'm still working on that one liner where it's like, how can I incorporate the last messages and the memorial page? But
You're
I'm
doing
really
great.
excited about the memorial page because
Yeah.
I've played around with it. I've already started, like, we have our beta nearly complete. So I've been able to create my own memorial page. And it's almost chilling in the sense it's like, whoa, you don't see people pre-create their memorial page, because when someone passes away, it's someone else going on those other websites and creating their obituary and telling that person's story. But sometimes there's just, one, that person's grieving. Two, there's not enough knowledge. Like, you can like podcasts and then you may just be like, she loves podcasts, and she's survived by 10 remaining family members, and it lists all their names. And that's just not that's not the story. If someone just wrote she's a traveler, like, I would have been like, what do you mean? Like, I felt like I was so much more. So with the with the memorial page, you have the power to create your story and leave it the way you would have wanted to be told. You can do your self obituary. You can put your last photo album. So you create those, like, curate those top 10 photos. You choose also your profile picture, which that way people don't be choosing like the Facebook images with and put wings around it, and it's like a terrible picture you wouldn't like. And eventual features that we would want to have is a life timeline, like you mentioned, like those, what were those milestones in your life that you were so proud of, and the last music playlist, like what are those songs that when I hear them, like, that I'm gonna remember you. So for my dad, I went back after 10 years after his funeral because I wanted to redo it to the way I thought he would have loved it. So I created a celebration of life. And oh my gosh, that was awesome. But it was also like the process wasn't as enjoyable because I was already forgetting things about my dad. There's nothing written anywhere. Like, I didn't have the, this, he died in 2013, so I didn't have like videos of him like telling his whole life story. So I had to ask my brothers, like, what was this and what were the songs again? And it was just like, it was hard because I just couldn't remember a lot of his life, and that made me really sad. So I mean, the celebration of life came out very beautiful. I made it pilot themed because his dream was to always be a pilot. So even though he was a mechanic, I wanted to like honor his dream, and so we made it like a plane themed and did blue colors, and we got mariachis, and we got a little orchestra trio in Nicaragua to come to the graveyard and play some of his favorite songs. We had food and cake, so it was really fun to create that celebration of life for him because it helped get me closure that like when I was 18 I couldn't do this, and now that 10 years later I can do this and I can make it more personalized. So but if I had his memorial page, I would have had a much easier time if it could have just been a guide. It'd be like, okay, well, I got the songs, this was his life, oh my god, these photos, I'm going to print them, these were his favorite photos. So I would just definitely think that choosing to do this in advance is something that is going to help a lot of people. And another part is my cousin, he passed away when he was 30 from COVID a couple of years ago, and he left behind 4 kids. And so at the time his family was grieving, we needed to raise money for hospital bills, and they needed help with a GoFundMe. So I was the person who was in charge of like trying to create a bio for the GoFundMe, talking about his life, talking about, the needs. And that's hard. That's hard because even though he's my cousin, like, I didn't know the full details of his life. And so it was trying to like almost create something from like what's going to appeal, what's going to get donations. And it really was hard. So another feature we want to include in the future is pre-creating your charity fundraiser. So that way you can ask people like, hey, instead of flowers, like, this is where I would like the money to go. It can be your favorite charity, or it can be like, hey, give it to my mom for hospital bills. Like for me, if I were to pass away, my biggest fear is that my mom would not be taken care of. So my charity fundraiser would be like, make sure my mom's set, and if she's set, then it can go to these charities or something. So there's just a lot to be done with emotional end of life planning that can really just be for the love that we have for the people in our lives, because we don't want them to struggle. We don't want them to have to go to like rack their brain and try to put these storytelling. We want them to just grieve. We want them to just grieve and know that, hey, we're still here in your hearts. And even messages or not, like, they're always there in your hearts, but having these types of bits of keepsakes is something that can definitely help with the journey.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I love the obituary piece. I wrote my dad's, and writing comes easily to me, and he was my best friend, so it was something I very deeply wanted to do. But
Nice.
I've had so many friends to where they have to write one for their grandparent. They're like,
It's hard.
I don't know what to do. Like, what do I say? I don't want to mess it up. And that's a really beautiful weight to take off of someone's shoulders by doing that ahead of time for yourself.
Yeah.
I also love, and I'm glad that you brought it up because I was going to bring it up. Your celebration of lives are just something that I've never even thought about, never heard done. It's so genius, and it's interesting because the funerals are never what the person would want unless they were very active in the planning. And most of the times it's not even for the immediate family that's like there. Like, you have to put on a show for people and other family that come. It's not at all a cathartic moment typically for the family that are actively grieving. And I wanted to thank you for giving me this idea because my dad's 5th anniversary is coming May 15th, and I'm going to do something just really small for him. I always wanted to on Day of the Dead, and I always felt like I didn't want to mess it up or do it incorrectly. I didn't want to disrespect like the
Oh
process
my
and not do it
gosh.
properly. So I never really dove into it. But this idea felt very much something like universally you can do this wherever you're at with whatever you're doing. Like, what would they enjoy? And
Wow.
I love that
Oh.
you did that for your dad. And I love that you brought up a mariachi band. Music absolutely transcends through the planes. I think that's so
Well, oh
beautiful.
my God, let me tell you a story though. So the reason I'm even in the death industry is not because of Last Farewells. The idea I had when I was in Nicaragua, I visited my grandpa during 2021 and my grandparents, so I lived with them and I was digital nomading, meaning my remote job let me be there and spend months with them at a time, which was amazing and such a privilege. So I got to really get close to my grandparents and I saw my grandpa that year die. I saw him from like having very active conversations at 93 with me to like just nothing at the end. It was a very different feeling from my dad's because my dad's was unexpected, but this one we were anticipating it. When someone passes away, that night is the viewing, meaning everybody from the community comes to the house and you're expected to give coffee and bread, so the family's like grieving but they're also trying to host, and then the next day is the burial, so it's so fast over there. I don't even, because I don't think they do embalming. Well, I don't think my family did that, so it's very quick. And I was like, wow, this is hard because you don't get to grieve, you don't get to personalize. So the idea I had was I wanted to create a celebration of life events company where you could create a celebration of life either 5, 10, 15, 20 years after the person's passing and just bring together their family, choose an activity they would have loved, choose themes and decorations they would have loved, and just kind of now be in the spirit of remembering them. Because when you're at the funeral, it's just a different type of grief. It's too hard to try to laugh and enjoy their memories. But a week, a month, 10 years later, it's so much easier to come back and genuinely remember who they were. So I had this idea because I have a lot of family in Nicaragua and they're all really good at little things. And I was like, okay, I want to create this family business so that they can get money and they can feel empowered. But also, we're doing something interesting. So I actually named it after my grandma. I literally incorporated it in Nicaragua too. It's called Enma. And I had this idea. I'm like, oh, so the death industry, this is so interesting. But I feel it, and that's when I started putting the gears started turning. I'm like, wait, but death has influenced my life since my dad died. Like I wrote notes. I'm like, wait, this is how it connected. I've always been thinking. I say I'm a life enthusiast, but I've always been thinking about death. And I remembered my old CEO from the travel company. He was working on something called Last Farewells, like just as a project in their company. So I remembered he had something. I was like, you know what? Let me ask him for advice. Let me see if he can jump on a call on advice on starting a business in this industry. So 5-10 minutes into that call, I tell him my idea. And then he's like, well, Estrella, this is good. This, small family business. He's like, but I have an idea. Like, why don't you come on board? Like, we stopped Last Farewells. It's not in production. Like, we just go abroad is the main focus. But why don't you come back on board and revive it? You can be, co-founder and CEO. You can, reimagine it. You can put it out there. Like, I know you have your dad's voicemail. Like, I need someone with like passion and the vision for it. And I was like shocked because I was like, what did he just offer me? Basically like a whole company that like the whole idea is built. I just need to like make it my own, put it out there, and whatnot. So I thought about it for, a while, like a year and a half, a year about. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this risk. I'm young. Like worst case, I can always get a job. And the reason he offered me this, because he's like, you can do Last Farewells, get funds, and then go back to Nicaragua to fund your project for your family. And then that way you have funds for it. And that was like, wow. So this is just kind of like, okay, I'll take a longer route, but then I don't have to, be stretched on money because I still like I had a great job, but it was definitely spread out with different pieces of helping family and also like the bills. And loans from travel. So it wasn't enough. But anyways, that's how I ended up on the journey. And it all started because of the celebration of life events company that I wanted to do that I still think is really interesting. I think I've only found one events company that does it in California, but I love it because honestly, it was so therapeutic for me to have that for my dad. And I'm really, really happy to hear that you're going to do something for your dad, whether big or small. Honestly, 5 years, like I'd say go off. Why not? But whatever's, comfortable to you. But the fact that you're even doing it, like it's just genuinely never too late to remember people. And I definitely hope that in the future when I'm more settled, I can still, I want to help people plan these events because they're a different type. I love birthdays. I celebrate everything. I've celebrated my 10,000 day birthday. It was awesome. So I celebrate half birthdays. May 8th is my half birthday. I celebrate. So it just made sense for me to celebrate someone else's life with how I think they would have liked it.
And it's beautiful because I think it's one of those things that kind of gets like just shielded in like just fear because it's death. But there's such a beauty to death that gets a really bad rap. It gets just hidden under all the scary parts that are inevitable and they're there. And then there's a moment where it just zips away and there's a lot of beauty left. And I think that I find it so interesting. And you had stated earlier, you're in a place where you're looking for investors. You are in indeed like looking to build out your company with some funding. And you had stated that you were just finding it harder to receive the type of funding that typical tech companies have. And before we jumped on, I said to you that I think that you are going to be the poster founder for the tech industry really being kind of uprooted with this core focus of going back to humanity. I think especially with the speeding up of AI and removing people from the equation, ultimately what they're removing is emotion, compassion, sympathy, love. Like all of these things are what make us. And I find it over all the conversations I've had over the last year with founders and different entrepreneurs, things fail when they are not based in love. They may be very successful in the beginning, but it is short lived. Things that are founded in love take a great while to become successful, but they last in eternity. And I do
That's
believe
beautiful.
in my heart of hearts that what you have created is not only something that has been missing for a very long time from the modern age of what we're all used to doing and how we're kind of societally living, but I love that your mission is to just make sure that no words are left unspoken in the whole world. Like bereavement for billions should be your tagline because that's how
Oh,
many
this is
people
such a great idea.
you're going to impact over your lifetime. You're 28, you just got started. The company hasn't even launched yet and you're already just making such waves in the tech industry. What does it feel like to be a different type of tech entrepreneur that is first focused on the humanities and second on the delivery method?
Yes, of course. Before I answer that question, I wanted to go back really quick to one thing you said about wanting to do Day of the Dead. Um,
Yes.
I grew up in Texas. I grew up around a lot of Mexicans. Listen to me, Mexican culture is amazing, and you can definitely do it. They are so accepting of somebody trying to learn the rituals. So I would honestly, and if I go to Mexico for Day of the Dead, I'm gonna throw out the invite to you. So because it's so beautiful there, to
Always
experience
coming
it
to
there.
that.
But even then, like what I did last year was just it was so simple. It was just putting up the frames and putting up a few candles, and for me personally, saying a prayer, getting some little treats, and it was very simple. So I definitely think you should do it. So what that was just a thought I had from before.
Oh, thank you,
Now,
love. I
yes,
appreciate that. I will. I'll do it
yes,
this year.
yes. And to your question about what it is like being a tech founder, so I'm a non-technical tech founder, which has had its hurdles because, like I said, I have the passion, but I don't have the tech background. So my focus now, like before, I was like, oh my god, how am I going to learn this? I've realized, you know what? Stop. I'm never gonna be the tech guru. I'm never. That's not what I want to be. I don't want to ever be that. I want to find the people who have the same passion as me, but with tech. And so my mission right now is, finding that person. And we have a tech team that is great in the Philippines, but I want definitely somebody who can help us lead and scale. So I've been talking to a few people that I'm really excited about. But I think I realized that in this space, I need to use my superpower, which for me has always been meeting strangers and building authentic relationships where it's not just like, what can I get out of you? That is what makes me. First of all, I hate asking. I need to get over that, right? Because you gotta ask. But still, I don't want to create relationships with just the intention of what can I get out of this person, because I also want to provide value to them, and I want to build a relationship for the long run, not just like getting a quick ask and then it's done, because that takes a lot of energy from you. So I'm definitely entering the space as more of a conscious founder. So my goal is to not be the type of person that burns myself out to the ground, because one, that's my health, and my health is number one, because if it's gone, then I'm gone, and then most likely the company is gone, because it's not stable enough to run without me right now. So I just think that being the conscious founder means I have to balance the wellness aspect with like all the business and the networking. And I think definitely I've gotten so much better in the past 3 months once I realized and found, like, once I found that female founder community space in New York. I was like, oh wow, these women are wearing the colorful colors. they're building the things, they're making money, they're having their kids, like they're doing it. And so that just being around those people is what really inspired me. So I'm now integrating more into the tech spaces, but I feel much more empowered knowing that I have these other spaces that I can rely on where there's BIPOC founders, there's female founders, and I have people who understand the hurdles that come with even just a scarcity mindset of like raising these big, huge numbers that I've never been around. Just a lot of mental hurdles. And then with the tech, I won a tech pitch competition last month, and it was the biggest thing for me because I really didn't think I was gonna win. I was shocked when I did, and the reason I didn't was because I didn't think that people would find our tech as like this groundbreaking thing. But I realized when I talked to the judges, I mean, what really was the most compelling was my story and the fact that it could resonate, and people could put themselves in my shoes. So I realized, okay, in this tech spaces, like I really want to make sure that I can tell the story and then tell it how what you just said, bereavement for billions. Like how do I see this becoming a global movement that becomes so natural? Like people, Facebook was huge, right? But like how can this become so natural, so easily doable, and still, keeping it simple, but still maintaining the integrity of creating this platform with such a deep mission? Because my co-founder, like I said, he tried this project in 2017. It's been something he still had because he genuinely believed in it. He believed in the idea. He wanted it to be almost like one of his legacy projects. And so I was really appreciative when one that the universe and my dad and God, all of those people connected me to him, and then also like presented me this opportunity that I'm now like adding my own unique twist to it, with the celebration aspect. So yeah, I would say all that to say is I'm definitely moving into the tech space, being kinder to myself and not trying to knock me out if I can't understand certain words, but also know where my strength is in this space. And I think that storytelling aspect is something that I really want to go deeper into.
100%. And I'd like to remind you and everyone listening this: emotional intelligence is priceless, and it costs a lot of people in tech a lot of money to replicate, and they still fail. The connection of the human heart, of vulnerability, and ultimately, I think love is the easy one for everyone to connect on. But I think until you've experienced grief, you don't realize how much it's the complete other side of the coin, and they're not opposites, they're the same. And in the way that we haven't really had a culture that gives much care or attention to bereavement, death, grief. There is going to be, I believe, a turn in the next few years, especially, where we are putting the humanity, the emotional intelligence, the empathy first, because tech is just going to keep taking off, and they can handle all the zeros and the ones. Like, we have to worry about the people. And I think your position is priceless, and what you bring to your company is priceless, because anybody can learn to code. Not me, of course, because it's very difficult.
Same.
You know what I mean? Like, anybody can code, but you were literally made for this project. You were meant to bring this to life. You were meant to make this a reality for others, and I think you were meant to just bring support to those in their end of days and comfort to those in the beginning of their new life. And it's
Thank you so much.
So beautiful.
This is such a beautiful way to start the morning. I also want to add that now being in this space, even though it's been hard, and I've definitely had moments where I'm like, am I cut out for this? I've also had bigger moments of like, wow, people are doing it, I can do it, right? But also like beyond Last Farewellism, I really want to elevate, like I want to bring myself up as a founder, meaning I want to work on my own content creation. And then I want to write a children's book on grief this year, actually, that's going to be related to Last Farewells. And it's my thing, but it'll funnel into the message. So I'm focused on ways where it's like, one, Last Farewells as a brand, and then me, Estrella, as a brand. Finally, I had a lot of stories to share. I'd been very scared for many years to start sharing my story, sharing how I traveled, or sharing tips that I know would be useful, or sober life, or the founder journey. So now I'm just trying to practice my own skills, and I think that came as a result from taking on entrepreneurship, because now I'm inspired. I'm like, okay, well, I can build. Like Last Farewells, is a start, like you were telling me. But I know that there's definitely much more in my life that I want to see come to life, and I'm really glad that I've gotten the opportunity to learn it, and also that I have my dad's risk levels of like being like, all right, buy amazing health insurance. Like, I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah.
All those really cushy benefits from like the stable jobs. But yeah, I feel really excited, and I'm really glad that the world has people like you that just elevate other people's missions and stories, and the way that you're able to craft everything so beautifully is literally a gift to this world. So everybody listening to this podcast, this is an angel right here, right
Oh,
here, right in front of me on the screen.
thank you. It brings me joy to meet new people. I knew immediately we'd be like besties for the resties. I'm so excited we had this
This is so true.
conversation. And like I said before we jumped on, like you're a superstar. You were meant to bring this platform to the people. You were meant to help people just have a softer beginning to their grief journey and just remembrances along the way. It's so beautiful, but this is literally the very beginning of your future. As I said, I think you are a force to be reckoned with. I think you're going to really bridge the gap between humanity and this like really ever evolving like deep crevasse that we have to deal with in the tech world that we keep getting lost in. And it brings me a lot of hope and peace to know that there are founders like you out there that are trying to
Yes.
keep us and what's important in the forefront.
Yes. Thank you. And I know you mentioned investors. Yeah, so our first initial investors are really interesting. They're in the finance world, the fintech world. And they're very, very successful people who have extensive amount of travel. So it was very interesting to see what type of investors we first connected with, which is my co-founder connected me to them. And it was amazing. So I've realized, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to find an investor, because I'll tell you a story. When I went to go visit this investor, he lives in the Grand Cayman Islands. I was very nervous because through Zoom it's, very serious. And then when I landed, he picked me up and we went canoeing and we talked about business. And it was like so life changing to me, because I said, oh, I want investors like this. Anytime I go visit an investor, I'm going to make sure we do something. And then I was in the UK in December. And so another investor that is coming on board, I took a $50 flight for 10 hours to go see him in Scotland. And I had lunch with him and his wife, and it was one of the best, most exhilarating conversations ever. It was just, that's where I'm looking for. So I don't want a scarce mindset with like, oh my god, I need money, like, and accept it from just anyone who may not be aligned in our values. But I've definitely believe that the investors that we do bring on board are either going to be angels, or they're just going to really resonate with seeing the bigger picture of this. And so I'm really excited there. And right now we're just getting ready for our fundraising round, because we just need to fix some legal items, and then we'll be ready to bring on more investors. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, because for any founders out there, there definitely is money, but make sure it's from the people who are really going to be mentors and supporters, and not something where you feel like you're just like on edge about, like. So yeah, that's what I'm manifesting, and I think it's happening.
It is happening and it's coming to you, and there's going to be so much more coming your way. I, for one, will be watching. I can't wait to see what's
Thanks,
next.
I'll be watching too.
Okay, everyone, you need to remember this name, because she is going to be a huge disruptor, not only in tech, but just in how we go about our day-to-day life, how we enjoy life. And I think it's just so special. Estrella Quiroz, you are a
Yes.
star. I am obsessed with you. Thank you so much for coming on the Make
Oh
Way
my God, yeah, Sarah, we are besties for the resties. I love that. I've never heard that term, but we definitely are. Thank
Oh
you.
my
Thank you,
God.
everybody. Yes, thank you.